Hey, what's up, my friend? We're going to talk about going pro, the difference between amateurs, professionals, how it affects your bank account, your business, and your whole life. It's really about leveling up in general. The content I'm going to cover has changed my life. It's real stuff. It's heavy stuff. If you stay to the end, I promise you, you're going to have some epiphanies that you haven't thought about before that are going to be a big deal for you. If you're not familiar with me, my name's Josh. I'm just a father of 5, but I've built and sold 4 companies of my own. And in addition to that, sold over $20 million worth of stuff on the internet. I've learned some things. I've been in the gutter, I've been at the top, I've been in the gutter again, at the top again. It's a whole thing, and this video is going to be really valuable. So I'm actually going to give you 3 different steps to going pro, meaning leveling up your mindsets, your skill sets, your network, your bank account, to change your confidence, your belief, your conviction, the certainty that you have. How do you become optimistic about the future? How do you do the hard things when you feel dead inside? You feel nothing. You see, there's a lot of differences between amateurs and pros. That's what we're going to talk about. You know, Tom Brady is referred to as the GOAT, greatest of all time when it comes to football. And if you look at like the way that Tom Brady became what he is in any professional athlete or any high achiever in business, there's similarities. There's differences happening in between their ears than the average person. That's what we're going to talk about. And the first thing I want to kick it off with is a statistic and a story I learned from a friend of mine named Brian Bowman. Brian was a professional golfer, and he does internet marketing now. He's an amazing human being, but I don't know a lot about golf. He told me something absolutely fascinating. He said the #1 predictive indicator of who's going to win the PGA Tour, however that works. I don't even know how that works, but they do lots of golf tournaments, and kind of like at the end of the season, someone kind of like wins the whole thing. The one KPI, key performance indicator, the one thing that they can measure to predict who's going to win is a statistic called bounce back rate. And this is so fascinating, but I'm not surprised. But check this out. What they do, they measure lots of things in all sports. And one of the things they measure in golf is how well a player does on a hole directly after doing really bad on the previous hole. Meaning if you're on hole number 7 and you just screw everything up and you get a double bogey and you hit it in the sand trap and you hit it in the water and it's just a mess, the score that you get on the very next hole and that delta between those 2 numbers is your bounce back rate. And this predictive number shows a lot about the mentality of people. There's another study my wife shared with me, I think it was a Harvard study on tennis players, professional tennis players. And they basically somehow figured out a way to measure the brain thoughts of tennis players after they do bad. So on one particular play, they do bad. And what they found is that the top 10 players in the world have positive thoughts in their head right after and as they're doing bad, where everybody else has negative thoughts, like I screwed it up, dang it, I'm so mad at myself. They get frustrated. The other people say, ooh, this is going to be good. This setback is a setup. This test is a testimony. This mess is a message. They're saying things like that to themselves. They look at it as actually a good thing that they had a setback. And that sounds really weird, but it's one of the key things to going pro. Step 1 out of the 3 steps to going pro is to stop hiding. I see this every day. I've seen it in my own life. I'm still struggling with it, but I've come a long ways. You know, people play small. You know, in a sea of 5'10" people, you only need to be 5'11" to stand out. And if you were raised by normies or people that think small, you even having a big vision for your life is enough for them to try to pull you back down. You even trying to think big or think of the possibility that maybe somehow, some way, if the stars align, you could be a really successful, influential person. That's like an impossible thought for most people. And so what do? We hide, we shrink back, we play small. You see, everything that God made, He made to grow and expand. He made it to produce fruit. Everything in the whole universe is about seeds and about fruit and about growth and about expansion, whether it's a nebula or a solar system or whether it's a seed or a cell or a sperm. Like all life, all growth comes from this little thing that evolves and grows into this big thing. Same is true with you as a human and with your business and your bank account and the impact and the legacy and the leadership, the way you raise your family, the way that you raise your kids. The problem is that most people live their whole life being an amateur because they're hiding. And look, the reason we hide is because it's risky to play full out. It's risky, emotionally risky, to go all in on yourself. I'm not trying to be Tony Robbins, I'm just telling you the facts. I was raised with not a lot, but we had everything we needed, but it was blue collar, middle class, right? And money was a weird topic in our household, and it put a lot of bad false beliefs around money and success. It also, in school and academics, people and children, they're trained to avoid failing. They're trained to not make mistakes. And when you program your mind to not make mistakes, you're gonna hide. You're gonna live your life as an amateur that never puts himself out there. Another thing that I find interesting is that most amateurs have a big ego. The people that are hiding have a bigger ego than most of the successful people. Not always, but most of the time. This is something I've noticed because one of the reasons people play small is to protect their ego. Is that you? I mean, be honest with yourself. It doesn't hurt me either way. It doesn't help me either way, but be honest with yourself. Is one of the reasons you play small so that you don't look stupid? Are you not willing to be bad at something for a little while so eventually you can be great at something? Are you so concerned with what everyone else thinks that you're going to let your potential go to the grave? If you wrestle with these things, you, my friend, are hiding. A lot of the people that I work with and all of the people that I surround myself with in my inner circle in real life, all of them know that they were meant for more. Is that you? Do you know that you have a purpose, a mission, a mandate, a destiny, that there's something waiting for you beyond the average? If you know that, then this is your call to stop hiding. You're going to run into what Stephen Pressfield calls in his amazing book, The War of Art. You should totally buy that book and read it as a side note. He calls it the resistance. The resistance is like God's way or the universe's way of testing your resolve. You're not allowed to not have adversity. But what happens is most amateurs think that adversity is evidence that they should stop. But what pros know is that resistance is evidence that they're on the right track. If you look at nature, resistance is part of everything. Look at the bamboo plant, for example. The Chinese bamboo plant is the second fastest growing plant in the world, the fastest land growing plant. The first one is some form of kelp, but that's just because I'm a nerd. That has nothing to do with bamboo, so let me get back on track. Bamboo takes 3, sometimes 5 years to grow. Now what's happening is when you plant the bamboo seeds, you have to water it daily for 3 years before any visible signs of success are happening. And what's happening during those 3 years is nothing but pure resistance. You see, William Shakespeare said, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown," meaning to be really successful and to be a leader, you gotta have a strong neck, right? Well, this bamboo tree, what it's doing for 3 years is establishing a deep root system. And for a lot of you, the reason you have little fruits in your life is because you have little roots under the ground. It's because every time you hit resistance, you shrink back, you fall back. I don't want that for you. I want you to succeed. I'm tired of the internet narcissists and internet gurus running around telling you to take ice baths and telling you to do all this nonsense and to buy their program. Look, you are actually meant for more. You're not a cosmic accident, but you can't hide. You got to go into the resistance and know that you're on the right track. You just got to push through. Another thing that's interesting comes from a different book called The Alter Ego Effect. And if you think about Superman, this is kind of a cool analogy or story. Some people view Clark Kent as like the guy and Superman as the alter ego. But the truth is, specifically with Superman and also for you, Superman is actually the guy. Clark Kent is the alter ego. And what I mean is the way that you're playing small right now, that's not even who you actually are. That's your Clark Kent. You see, you were made to be a weapon in the hand of whatever God's plan is for your life. You were made to just wreck things and build things, wreck the bad things and build the good things. You're meant to pour into people, to invest in people. You're meant to be free. You're meant to have autonomy, to live, move, and have your being. But you're living in the Clark Kent version of yourself, and you never let the Superman version out. I love how Myron Golden says, most people need to stop trying to be successful, and they need to start letting themselves be successful. You need to get out of your own way, and what that looks like on a daily basis for an average person is you need to just believe the truth that you are a weapon, that you are meant for more, and let that come out. Even though the sea of 5'10" people around you, as you begin to be 5'11", even though they're gonna give you sneers and looks and say comments, even though the initiative you launch might fail and they'll say, "I told you so, you should have got a real job," even though that resistance is happening, you let it out anyway, because it's actually who you always have been in the first place. The Bible tells a great story about a man named Gideon. I don't know a ton about Gideon, but this story broke my brain. You see, Gideon was hiding in a wine press? Yes, I think he was in the basement of a wine press, hiding from this army of marauders called the Midianites. Midianites. Yeah, hopefully we spell that right. The Midianites were people that were not producers. They were just consumers. The Midianites were like a roving band of people that stole other people's production. They would sit around and be lazy, and then at harvest time, they'd roll through the hills and steal all the grain and all the crops and all the wine that other people worked all year to create. And Gideon was scared because they would kill people and steal their stuff. And so as he was hiding, an angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon. And what's crazy about this story, here's the good part. The angel said, "Gideon, mighty man of valor." That's how he announced himself to Gideon. Now think about this. Let me paint you a picture, because this perfectly parallels most people in real life. You're hiding. You're playing small. You're behaving as a coward in many ways. Even though you're a good person and you're called for greatness, you might be playing small. And as you're doing that, it's embarrassing, right? As you're doing the embarrassing playing small thing, God calls you what you actually are. He says, "Gideon, mighty man of valor." See, he didn't shame Gideon for what he was being Clark Kent in that moment. He already knew that Gideon was Superman. And so he proceeded to tell him to stop hiding, to go out and to go fight. And Gideon defeats the Midianites, and it's this whole magical story. That's what real life actually is like for you. If you want to go pro, if you want to live a life that's different, not to just have a chip on your shoulder or prove someone wrong, but because you want to maximize your own potential, we got to get out of the wine press. You got to understand that you are a mighty man of valor right now. Start acting like it, because it's true. Step 2 to going pro is to decide and declare. We have to say it before we can see it. This is a principle that maybe you'll have a hard time with. I did for a long time, but it's a fact. It's irrefutable. It's irrevocable. It's the way that it is. What you focus on, you will find. And the negative things and the negative thoughts in your head will manifest in your life. It's really true. You have to declare where you're going. You have to declare that God has good things waiting for you. You have to declare that you are the head, not the tail, that victory is waiting for you. Despite the resistance, despite the naysayers, you have to actually start talking as if it's true before you feel like it's true. And you also have to make an actual decision. You know, most people don't even make decisions. Most people dabble. There's dabblers and then there's drivers. Amateurs dabble. They dip their toe in the water. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try this marketing campaign. I'm going to try this new technique. I'm going to go dabble with this thing or that thing. And they basically perpetually dabble, achieving nothing. Professionals are drivers. They're prime movers, as Russell Brunson calls them. These are the people that create all the jobs. They create all the opportunity, and they take massive risks because they're living into their Superman self. They've decided that they're going all in. They've decided who they are before they felt like who they are. And there's some tricks that I've learned that have helped me a lot. The first one is to start paying attention to the I am statements that you say about yourself. We say things in our head quietly, like, I'm an idiot. I am tired. We say I'm tired all the time. I'm so tired. See, what happens is you're going to see what you say. And when you're thinking thoughts in your head, that's you saying it to yourself in your head. And this might sound like nonsense woo-woo, but it's a fact. It's visibly true. You can look at the negativity on people and look at the results in their life. You can look at the positivity on people and see the results in their life. Now, I will give you a warning. There's a lag period in between the result and you saying before you see. And that's normal. That's called the resistance. You're being tested to see if you're going to believe it before you can see it. You have to believe in your heart, be fully persuaded that you are going to make it, because you ain't going to quit, because you made a real decision to go all in. Even the word decision comes from the root word decide. And the word decide has 2 parts to it. The first part is called the prefix, which is de, which means of, right? And then the suffix, the last 4 letters, are cide, which is side. You've seen this in other words like pesticide, homicide, herbicide, etc. And it means to cut or to kill. Okay, the word decide means to cut or to kill. That's what it means if you do an etymological study on it. Most people that are dabbling, they have not cut off all other options. They have not burned the boats. They've not went all in. Are you going to actually become a master at something or not? You don't have to, but it's a shame if you don't, because the graveyard is full of people that didn't. You want to go hang out with them, or are you going to leave it on the field? If you want to go pro, you want to change your family tree, you want to get big results, you want abnormal results, this is the type of mental stuff you have to change. We make a decision, we declare our intentions, and we keep declaring it even though we feel nothing, and eventually you will see it. And step number 3 to going pro is to know the difference. And so I made a short list here on my iPad of some of the differences between pros and amateurs. Tell me which ones you can relate to, because you need to understand The differences between professionals in all fields and amateurs in all fields, it's not small, it's big. It's not incremental, it's exponential. The difference between an NBA player and a college Division I player, even that gap is exponentially different. People don't understand how much more mastery someone has on a category. They think that they sort of kind of get it, right? So you, for example, might have a $1 million business and you think you're really smart. You are confused. You don't understand how much you don't know compared to someone with a $100 million business. They don't know a little bit more. That's why they know orders of magnitude more. And it's not to shame you. It's just that part of the growth process of going pro is understanding I know nothing. One of my favorite quotes comes from Socrates, pretty smart guy. He said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. And what should be happening on your progression, on your growth journey, is that you progressively become more aware of how dumb you actually are and how little you actually know compared to everything that there is to know. You see, stupid people think they got it figured out. And the smartest people in the world know that they know nothing relative to the body of knowledge that exists in the universe. And it's important. So anyway, here's my list. This is what I came up with. Professionals are producers. Amateurs are pontificators. What that means is professionals do stuff. Amateurs think about stuff, talk about stuff, read about stuff, and these are not the same thing. This is one of the reasons academics at the university level despise entrepreneurs, because academics, not all of them, but many of them, they're pontificators. They understand theory. They've read books, but they didn't get their fingernails dirty and go do stuff. They haven't built businesses and created jobs, but they teach a business class at Yale. You see, this is a problem because there's a lot of ego and pride that can get wrapped up in thinking that you know something, but there's different levels to knowing. And the highest form of knowing is by doing. Pros know this, that's why they put themselves out there. Another difference is that pros are active and amateurs are passive. Pros are active, meaning they're in motion, okay? It's one thing to plan, and then you gotta go do it. And you're never gonna have a perfect plan, but amateurs, what they're doing is they're passively, perpetually planning. One of my new favorite quotes is, don't make a career out of laying the groundwork. Boom. If you want a writer downer, I just gave it to you. Most people are making a career out of getting ready. Is that you? Don't do that, right? Pros decide, amateurs are told. What that means is professionals decide up front because they decide and declare, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, nothing's gonna stop me. And they've decided it, it's already done. They speak it before they see it, right? Amateurs, on the other hand, are told who they are. You're told who you are by your parents, by your alcoholic grandpa, by your high school guidance counselor. You're told who you are by your favorite politician or by the media or by pop culture or by Taylor Swift. Don't be told who you are, declare who you are. Because the only person that knows who you actually are anyway is God, because he's your creator. If you want to know something about a product, you go ask the manufacturer. God is your manufacturer. You got to decide what you're going to believe at the end of the day. Professionals willingly believe in an alternate reality. They say, I am going to decide to be this version of myself. I'm going to decide that this is who I actually am. And they almost live in this delusion until it comes true. Amateurs, on the other hand, play small. They hide in the wine press like Gideon, and they're told that they're average, they're not that good, that they weren't meant for more. You know, Smiths, this is the way it is, the Smith way. This is the Smith way, right? And they have all this stuff, and it's just negative and awful and terrible, and I don't want that for you. Another difference between pros and amateurs is that pros, on average, actually have more humility, and amateurs have more pride. And this is an unpopular take, but it's a fact. On average, people that are playing small actually have unbelievable amounts of ego and pride. Like I said before, they're not willing to look stupid. They're not willing to be bad at something so eventually they can be good at something. While pros, on the other hand, they have humility. They have intellectual humility. They have physical humility. They have coaches. They have mentors. They have helpers. They surround themselves with people smarter than them. Henry Ford said, surround yourself with people smarter than you, right? That's the key to success. You see, if you want to be the smartest person in the room, you're going to live in a pretty small room. If you want to go far, you got to go with people. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. And you can go fast in circles all by yourself, never accomplishing anything. Humility is required to do big things. And whether you willingly accept this and choose to be humble or not, humility is going to sneak up on you one way or the other. And then last but not least, professionals live in anticipation and amateurs live in anxiety. Myron does amazing teaching on the difference between anticipation and anxiety. I'll give my rendition of it here because it's powerful as we end the video. You see, the difference between anxiety and anticipation is very simple. Both of them have to do with what you choose to focus on. And when you're focused on a future outcome that's undesirable, okay, we'll call it a UFO. When you are focused on an undesirable future outcome, for example, it's Thursday night, you have an important meeting on Friday, you're thinking, what if I'm going to lose a deal? What if they say no? You, my friend, are focusing on a UFO, an undesirable future outcome. And what that does when you're focused on a UFO is it creates anxiety in you right now in real time. Your palms can get sweaty, your heart rate can increase. You literally waste present energy by fixating mentally on an undesirable future outcome. This is how most people live their whole life. They're constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. They're waiting for the bottom to fall out. They're waiting for the rainstorm to take something away from them. They're constantly fixating on what could go wrong. And because of that, they have no energy because they're drained of energy all the time. It's exhausting to be in anxiety. I understand anxiety. I've driven myself to the hospital with chest pains before just from anxiety more than once. I have compassion for this, but it's really easy to fix. And there's a quote I learned from Dan Gilbert at Quicken Loans. He's a multi-billionaire. It was one of my first jobs. And he had all over the offices, what you focus on, you find. And that is a simple quote to put in your pocket and keep forever, because to live in anticipation is a totally different thing that will change your life forever. We don't want to live in anxiety and focus on undesirable future outcomes, UFOs. We want to focus on something else, because what we focus on, we find. We're going to focus on a desirable future outcome. We're going to shift our focus from lack to abundance. We're going to shift our focus to the good things that could happen to us tomorrow. And an example of this would be an 8-year-old kid on Christmas Eve. When you're an 8-year-old kid on Christmas Eve, you cannot even fall asleep. You have so much present energy because you're fixated on how good tomorrow is going to be, you can't even fall asleep. You see, this is how successful people live their life. They can see themselves winning the Super Bowl before it happens. They can feel what it feels like to be accepting the award before it happens. You can see yourself and feel the emotion of writing $1 million check to build an orphanage before you wrote the check. And this is you fixating and focusing on a desirable future outcome. At the end of the day, you have to decide, were you meant to win? Is God with you or is he against you? You know, I believe, whether you think it's delusional or not, that I was made on purpose for a purpose. I believe you were too. And I believe that that belief is what makes things easier. Not easy, but easier to make it through the resistance and get the big result. Hey, I know this was heavy stuff. I get passionate about this topic because I actually care about you, even if I haven't met you. And it's 100% real. That's why we dragged all of our cords and our lights in here and set up a camera and I'm yelling at you. I'm trying to love you. We have a heart for local small business owners, for entrepreneur families, to help you make more money, to go faster, to change the way that you think, and just build community around it. If you got value out of this video, you have a moral obligation to share it with someone that needs to hear it. You have a moral obligation to download it, save it, like it, so that more people can see it. That's a small price to pay that helps us and is going to help someone else. So until next time, take care and God bless.